Imagine trusting someone with your heart and health, only to find out they've been hiding a life-altering secret. This is the shocking story of a Houston man who betrayed that trust in the most unimaginable way. Over the span of a decade, he knowingly transmitted HIV to his wife and several other women, leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and devastation. But how did this go unnoticed for so long? And what drove him to make such chilling choices? As we dig deeper into this story, you'll hear the voices of those impacted, uncover the twists that led to his eventual exposure, and see how a web of deception finally unraveled. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a cautionary tale that reminds us how fragile trust can be. Stay with us as we unravel the truth behind this dark chapter, one revelation at a time. It all started with a seemingly normal relationship. This man, who we'll call James, was married to a woman named Rachel. On the surface, everything appeared perfect: family, career, and love. But behind closed doors, James had a darker side, one that involved deceiving multiple women while carrying a deadly virus. Rachel, like the others, had no idea. Their life together was filled with joy, but unbeknownst to her, James was hiding something he knew could change everything. For years, he lived a double life, engaging in risky behavior with others while concealing his HIV diagnosis. His actions were calculated, premeditated, and dangerous. But why? What could possibly drive someone to knowingly put others in harm's way, especially someone they claimed to love? As Rachel and the other women eventually came to learn, the consequences of his actions were far-reaching, and the truth was more devastating than they ever could have imagined. As time passed, the tension began to grow beneath the surface of James and Rachel's relationship. Rachel, though deeply in love with her husband, started noticing subtle changes in his behavior. He became distant, colder. The small lies he told started to add up, and his excuses for being out late became more frequent. But there was one thing that kept Rachel in the dark. James was a master at hiding his true self. He knew how to maintain the illusion of a happy family life, even while making reckless choices. Meanwhile, the other women James was involved with were also starting to piece things together. Many had no idea they were in the same dangerous situation, unaware of each other's existence. But as more of them began to experience health complications, the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fit. One woman, Emily, had started feeling sick. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and when doctors confirmed her worst fear, she tested positive for HIV. Her world came crashing down. With no answers, she turned to others, and it wasn't long before she discovered that several women had shared similar experiences. James had been in their lives, under different aliases, all while hiding the one truth that would change everything. The realization that they weren't alone in their suffering made their situation even more unbearable. They began to question, was it negligence, or was it something much darker? The situation was beginning to spiral out of control, and the weight of what James had done was about to become too heavy for him to carry any longer. But the question lingered. How long would it take before the full extent of his actions came to light? And would any of the women find justice before it was too late? As the web of deception tightened, the pressure was mounting. Rachel, despite her suspicions, never imagined her husband could be the source of her pain. But one evening, as she rifled through a pile of paperwork in the study, she stumbled upon something that would change everything: a receipt for an HIV test. Her heart sank. James had tested positive years ago and had never told her. The betrayal hit her like a punch to the gut. How could he hide something so crucial, something that could have protected her? But it wasn't just Rachel who was about to find out. Emily, after a long and painful battle with her diagnosis, had contacted the other women. They were coming together, determined to expose the man who had changed all of their lives. The truth was becoming inevitable. James could feel the pressure mounting, but was still clinging to his lies. He was trying to cover his tracks, making excuses, and denying any involvement. But with each passing day, the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. The women, now connected, were piecing together his movements, his deceit. They knew the truth, and it was only a matter of time before the authorities would be involved. Rachel stood at the edge of a decision that would change the course of her life. Confronting James meant more than just revealing his betrayal. It meant facing the terrifying reality of the damage he had done, not just to her, but to the others as well. But could she gather the strength to stand up for herself and the other women? The tension was building, and James could feel it too. He knew the clock was ticking. How long could he continue the lie before everything came crashing down? The walls were closing in, and the confrontation that was about to unfold would be one that none of them could ever forget. Just as Rachel prepared to confront James, another shock rocked the already fragile situation. A call came in late one night, a number she didn't recognize, but the voice on the other end was all too familiar. It was Emily. But this time, the tone in her voice was different, desperate, fearful. Emily had uncovered something that neither Rachel nor the other women had expected. While they were all focused on exposing James, Emily had uncovered a hidden truth that deepened the danger. She had learned that James wasn't just some irresponsible man. He was somehow connected to a network of people who were intentionally spreading HIV, with a focus on unsuspecting victims like them. It wasn't just about him. It was about a larger, more sinister operation, one that made his individual betrayal feel like the tip of the iceberg. As the realization settled in, Rachel's fear escalated. The situation had grown beyond personal heartbreak into something much darker. It wasn't just about one man's actions anymore. It was about a system designed to hurt people. How deep did this conspiracy go? Who else was involved? Emily was frantic, warning Rachel that they were no longer just dealing with a cheating husband, but a calculated effort that could be much more widespread. The stakes were higher than ever. As Rachel struggled to process this new information, she realized that the women, once focused on seeking justice, were now in much greater danger than they had ever imagined. Not only did they need to find a way to bring James to justice, but they also had to protect themselves from those who might be pulling the strings behind him. Each new revelation made it harder to know who they could trust, and what started as a personal betrayal was now an intricate web of deceit and manipulation. Time was running out. Rachel felt the urgency to act before this network could silence them, and James, now more dangerous than ever, was watching their every move. The tension, but even as the authorities closed in on the criminals, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling of being haunted by the truth. James might be behind bars, but the damage had already been done. And as she looked at the other women, her allies, she realized that even though the story was over, the scars left by this betrayal would stay with them forever. The final revelation left everyone questioning how far one man would go to manipulate, deceive, and hurt others, and how easily the ones who trust you can be left in the dark until it's almost too late. In the end, the women who had been deceived by James found a measure of peace. The scars, both physical and emotional, would take time to heal, but they had finally reclaimed control of their lives. The justice they fought for wasn't just about punishing a man. It was about protecting others from the same fate, shining a light on a dark, hidden world. While James's arrest marked the end of his reign of terror, the women had learned a valuable lesson. Trust could be fragile, but strength in unity was unbreakable. They all vowed to keep speaking out, to ensure no one else would fall victim to similar manipulation. As for Rachel, the road to healing was long, But with each passing day, she grew stronger.